What do you think? Should Alec Baldwin be found guilty or not? I'm an attorney. I'm also a filmmaker and an actor. It's kind of a weird combination, I know. But as an actor, a filmmaker, and an attorney, I think I can make sense out of what happened on the set of Rust. Let's look at the law. Involuntary manslaughter, the unlawful killing of a human being without malice. 2 elements. It applies while committing an unlawful act which does not amount to a felony, or while committing a lawful act which might cause the death of another person in an unlawful manner or without due caution and circumspection. It's the second element we're looking at because it basically means you're being reckless in a way which could foreseeably cause death. Alec Baldwin would not be found guilty of involuntary manslaughter if the death was ruled to be an accident, or if it's shown that he's not acting recklessly or with criminal negligence. Both of those are defenses. In the trial of Halyna Hutchins, the armorer on the set of Rust, it was all about how did live rounds get onto the set where they should not have been? How did they get into the gun? And of course, the jury found Halyna Hutchins to be responsible. In Alec Baldwin's case, it's all about the moment of the shooting. So let's watch. Let's watch what we do know about that moment.
And were there any other scenes that were filmed prior to lunch other than that one?
After we finished on that end of town, we moved up the road to the church and filmed a good amount of interior stuff in the church.
Okay. Mark. And set. Ready and action.
Harlan Russ, did you stand up nice and slow? Toss any weapons you have.
Begin. Ready? Little too wide. And set. Ready and action.
Harlan Russ, did you get up nice and slow? Toss any weapons you have.
One more. You good? Ready? Set. Ready and action.
Harlan Russ, did you get up nice and slow? Toss any weapons you have.
Well, how close can I get right there?
Joe, you want me to wait to give you that line till he lands?
Okay.
Till camera lands?
Yeah.
Yep.
Set. This one.
Yeah.
Draw your gun, look up, and pull your gun, okay?
Okay, which way? Camera right or left?
This side camera for now.
So camera left for now.
I'll stand right here for you.
So whip it out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me get this all greased and ready. Okay, ready? Okay, ready? Ready.
And set. Ready and action.
Harlan Russ,
Do one more just like that. You got one more? Yeah.
Ready?
And set. Ready and action.
Harlan Russ, nice.
So as we were rehearsing scenes, he said, now I want to do a scene where we've done other shots before lunch. He said, when we come back from lunch, we'll do this. And he said, I want you to pull it out, show me. Because I was showing you what I thought was the best angle to see the glint of the gun under my coat. because you want the scene to work, the shot to work. So where the holster's here, if the gun is here, my coat comes around, and I held my hand like it was like I was just cupping my hands, like I was just resting.
Okay.
So when we were setting up the camera angle, we were talking about what the shot was supposed to be. And forgive me if I over-explain this, but the scene is very tense, right? And so you achieve that through editing and camera angles. And so you want to see Rust sitting there. Is he dead? Is he alive? The men coming closer, they're ordering him to give up. And then you cut to close-ups, and you're cutting from the character to the lawmen back and forth. And the first shot was supposed to essentially be the first moment we might realize that Rust is not, in fact, as injured as we might have thought. And so it was going to be a close-up on the weapon coming out of the holster. And so we talked about that a little bit. Halyna and I had talked, and there's Reed there, Serge was there. They're talking about the lighting. And then at a certain point, it's time to set the camera angle up. It's not a rehearsal yet. You're just sort of what they call auditioning the shot. Like, do you like this camera angle?
Okay.
And so when he said cold gun on set, and I pulled that gun out, and she was guiding me where to aim the gun. Then I said, do you want me to lower the gun low enough for you to see the cocking of the gun? She said, yes. I said, can we get that in this angle? She said, yes. And as I have the gun in my hand, move the gun, and I cock it back. I've told you this before. I cock it back. And I said, can you see that? She said, yes. And I don't want to go all the way back and cock it. I just pulled it 3/4 of the way. I said, can you see that? That's okay? She said, yes. Then I let go of the hammer. And that's when the gun went off.
I know I got up behind her to try to see on the monitor. And there was an incredibly loud bang that was not like the half and quarter loads you hear on a set. Those are sort of, they're loud poofs and pops. This was deafening.
And I showed him in the rehearsal. So when we came back after lunch, we rehearsed for the camera. And I took the gun out, really, I was showing him, I'm going to go like this, like this, like this. Cock and turn, bang, it went off. The first time.
Okay. So it was
the very first time that we were shooting that shot, that we were rehearsing for that shot.
Okay.
That camera shot.
And you were rehearsing that scene. Was it an actual rehearsal? There's some disagreement about that, whether it was a formal rehearsal at that time.
This is a marking rehearsal where I'm going to show her. She's standing next to the camera. She's like this. You're me. She's got a monitor here. The camera is here filming that way. She takes a monitor that is his monitor, the operator, and turns it toward her. It swivels, and she says to me, hold the gun lower. Go to your right. Okay, right there. All right, do that. Now show it a little bit lower. And she's getting me to position the gun. Everything is in her direction. She's guiding me through how she wants me to hold the gun for this angle. And I draw the gun out, and I find a mark. I draw the gun out, I find a cut. And what's really urgent is the gun wasn't meant to be fired in that angle.
So if you're shooting directly into the camera lens, you're not aiming.
I'm not shooting into the camera lens. I'm shooting just off.
Just off.
Right, in her direction. I'm holding the gun where she told me to hold it, which ended up being aimed right in below her armpit. It was what I was told, I don't know. This was a completely incidental shot, an angle that may not have ended up in the film at all. But we kept doing this, and so then I said to her, now in this scene, I'm going to cock the gun. And I said, do you want to see that? And she said, yes. So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
At the moment. The decisive
That was the moment the gun went off, yeah. That was the moment the gun went off.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never. That was the training that I had. You don't point a gun at me and pull the trigger at them.
I mean, she was, in a way, what sickens me the most is she was guiding me through the very motions that wound up costing her her life.
People said to me, I got countless people online saying, you idiot, you never point a gun at someone. Well, unless you're told it's empty, and it's the director of photography who's instructing you on the angle for a shot we're going to do. And she and I had this thing in common where we both thought it was empty, and it wasn't.
Well, there are some who say you're never supposed to point a gun at anyone on a set, no matter what.
Well, unless the person is the cinematographer who's directing me where to point the gun for her camera angle. That's exactly what happened.
Gun experts have talked about these old six-shooters and how they work. The FBI tore apart the actual gun that Alec Baldwin used on the set. And in the armorer's trial, they presented pictures of the internal pieces. But you know what? I haven't yet seen anyone actually recreate what happened. All right. Not a real cowboy. Not a real cigarette. But it is a real gun. Made by Pieta. The same as what Alec Baldwin used on the set of Rust. This is not exactly the same model, but it is the same firing mechanism. And that's what I want to talk about now. Of course. Unloaded. Yes, I checked. Now I want to demonstrate a couple things about the Pieta. This is true for all single-action revolvers. What that means, single-action, SAR, single-action revolver, means it only works one way. Pulling the trigger here does nothing, as you can see. Pulling the trigger does nothing unless the hammer is cocked. Now, as far as the hammer goes, there are three positions, three different locking positions. I can pull it back just, it's called a quarter lock, or halfway. You can hear that click. In these positions, it will not fire. All the way back is the only way in which it will fire. Again, the quarter lock, that trigger will not fire. The halfway position, that trigger will not fire. All the way back, and the trigger will release. Now, another thing about these guns, if your finger is on the trigger and you pull the hammer back and let the hammer go, it will fire. Again, just holding the gun in this position with my finger exerting pressure on the trigger. I'm not really pulling the trigger, I'm not consciously pulling the trigger, but just holding the gun like this. When it's held like this with enough pressure on the trigger, when the hammer is cocked back, whether I cock it back into that quarter position, let it go, it will close and fire. Cock it back halfway, let it go, it will close and fire. Cock it back all the way, and it fires. However I do this, it will release the hammer, and if there was a charge in there, it would fire it. Now, keep that in mind as we talk about what happened on the set of Rust.
Harlan Rust.
Cock the gun. And I said, do you want to see that? And she said, yes. So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
At the moment. The decisive
That was the moment the gun went off, yeah. That was the moment the gun.
Now for this next part, you be the cowboy. Put yourself into the mindset of Alec Baldwin's character, Harlan Rust, defending his grandson. He's been chased. People are trying to shoot at him. He's taken refuge in this church. He's wounded. We don't know how bad, but he's been shot. He's wounded. So he's sitting there in that pew. He's got a big heavy coat on. Got his gun on his left side, which requires him, being right-handed, to what they call a cross draw, reach across his body in order to pull it out. Not the easiest thing to do when you're sitting down, by the way. I bet in a church pew it might be even harder than on this chair I've got. But let's think about that action then. Now, Alec Baldwin was in character. He wasn't Alec Baldwin. He was Harlan Rust. So he's got all this in his mind as he's getting ready, even though there's no dialogue. Of course, as an actor, as a professional actor, he's in the head of his character. And this character, you recall, Joel Souza, the director, told him to pull the gun out and point it. And Alec Baldwin said, you want me to whip it out? And yes, that was the direction. Whip it out.
Stand right here for you.
So whip it out. Okay, well, let me get this all greased and ready. Okay, ready?
So as we saw in the takes before lunch, that's what Baldwin was doing. He was whipping the gun out in a fast, jerking motion. Now, you also heard him say before the take, let me grease it, I think he said. The idea being that he wanted to make sure the gun wasn't going to catch on anything, that it would come out of the holster. So he starts off, he's got his hands on the gun, one hand on the gun, one hand across his other hand. And when it's time to go into action, I didn't do that very well. Let's try that again. So what he does when it's ready is he whips it out. Now, you'd be crazy to do that with a loaded firearm. He did it with a loaded firearm, he just didn't know it. That would be an incredibly dangerous move. Let me demonstrate for you. Let's say this is already cocked. In other words, pulling the trigger now will fire this. And of course it's unloaded. In this movement, I can probably, because of the shot, when he's got his hand out, of course his finger needs to be on the trigger. It wouldn't look convincing otherwise at all for the film if the character, when he's about to be shot by these other guys, pulls the gun out and his finger's not even there. So that fits the character. He needs to do that. Now, as I say, with this gun already cocked, ready to go off, and I whip. Did you hear that? Just whipping it out, it fired somewhere. Maybe it would have blown off my foot. I don't know. But that's not what happened to Alec Baldwin, is it? It didn't fire as he was pulling it out. However, when you whip it out, you put all that effort into whipping that gun out, and you're still gripping that gun, and now you use your thumb to pull that hammer back, bam, because you're gripping the trigger. That's what I believe happened. Alec Baldwin says he didn't pull the trigger. I don't think he did. Not consciously. He didn't choose to pull the trigger. But by whipping that gun out and then cocking it, he's already got too much pressure on that trigger. And it fires. The moment he lets it go, the moment he pulls that thumb back, it fires. That's what I honestly believe happened to Alec Baldwin.
Harlan Russ. Harlan Russ. Harlan Russ.
Bam. Bam, bam, bam. Ma'am? Some people say Alec Baldwin should have checked the gun. No, that's the armorer's job. Screen Actors Guild put out a statement in January 2024 saying exactly that. To quote from their statement, an actor's job is not to be a firearms or weapons expert. It is not the performer's responsibility to check the firearm. Performers train to perform, and they are not required or expected to be experts on guns or experienced in their use. In fact, if an actor takes apart a gun or does something to a firearm, the armorer on set should then take that gun back, check it again. Because they are the professional tasked with making sure that that gun is safe. And it is the armorer that everybody else, all the other actors, all the other people on the crew, everybody's relying on the armorer not any particular actor, to make sure that a weapon on set is safe. So in summary, was Alec Baldwin reckless? Was he negligent? Could he have foreseen that his actions that day in the church, that what he was doing there sitting in the pew, that his actions could have harmed somebody, that his actions could have killed somebody? Is there any reason to think that he should have foreseen that? I mean, think about it. He was handed a cold gun. Cold gun on set, that's film slang, meaning a weapon, a prop gun that has been checked so that everybody knows when it's called out that it's cold, it's safe. It's safe. It cannot hurt anybody. It's a harmless prop, is what that means, a cold weapon. He was handed that prop by the people whose job it was to have checked and determined that that was a safe prop. People that Alec Baldwin relied upon. He was in an environment, a film set, where what he was doing is exactly what he was supposed to be doing. He was supposed to be doing the actions of his character. That's what he was doing. He whipped out that gun because that's what was called for by the character, by the script, by the actions of the story of the movie, and specifically by his director, by director Joel Souza. Pull that gun out, whip it out. In getting ready to film and blocking the set, he held the gun, he positioned it, he showed it, he cocked it, he pointed it. He was doing everything at the direction of director of photography, Halyna Hutchins. So the result was sad, tragic, horrible. Of course, there should never have been a real bullet on the set. Certainly should not have been a real bullet in that gun. But Alec Baldwin, as was shown in Hannah Gutierrez's trial, Alec Baldwin had nothing to do with getting the guns, getting the ammo, or loading the guns, or determining. I mean, none of that. He was not part of that process at all. And once that bullet was in the gun, it was an accident waiting to happen. So no, not involuntary manslaughter. I hope you like this video. Check out some of my others. Thank you very much for watching.